I would continue this journey showing one game of Botvinnik, actually two games of Botvinnik, one training game and one game which he played in tournament in Moscow, both games from 1963. Botvinnik did not play first move e4 much in his life. Maybe in a whole database we had maybe only 50-60 games where he played first move e4. But he's of course a great expert. He was an English opening. And he played one interesting idea in this system of Rossolimo. At least I did not see many games with this idea which Botvinnik played. So we have our typical structure, rook e1, e5. So in this Magnus game we had, which we just saw, we had move knight f6, e5. White has here obviously a choice. He can take, like what I was talking about, and then black can take with a b pawn or black can take with a d pawn. Both is possible, of course. And we are going to be having these positions and structures in the other parts of this DVD on Rossolimo. But like I said, b4 is usually a clever move, trying to undermine black's grip on the center, right? And Botvinnik wants to do this without taking on c6, and he has actually two games which I would like to one to show in its entirety and one to show only part of it. So a3, he first play in training games versus Furman, he plays move a3. At least if the dates in my chess base are correct, in a mega chess base database are correct, the first game was with a3 and then was game with a c3. So first he played a3, knight e7, and he played move b4. In his second game he will play move c3, knight e7, a3. Or he could have started a3, knight e7, c3, because second game he did not want to sacrifice a pawn. So this is a very well-known pawn sacrifice. Also after move bishop takes, sometimes b4 immediately. It is very well-known pawn sacrifice. It is based on a general assumption that white is going to have a compensation. We do not have any forced lines here, but white is simply having an very active bishop. He won some time, and there is a general assumption that white is going to have a compensation here, which I think that white does. But maybe later on Botvinnik didn't want to sacrifice this pawn in the another game which he played. His opponent Furman did not accept this pawn sacrifice. He played move d6, c3. And then we actually got the almost same structure like in a second Botvinnik's game. But in a second game, because Botvinnik played move first c3 and b4, his opponent will take on b4 and try to push quickly d5. Here black doesn't take anything, he castles. Bishop c4. h6, d3. We have interesting position here because, black bishop is on g7 and pawn is on e7, but white's build-up looks like some strange Italian. White is building up some central pressure and he is a little bit better. Look, b6, knight bd2, bishop b7, knight f1. White is really playing like some sort of strange Italian. Black will ultimately have to react, and black does react in a center, again in a way that sometimes we see it in Italian defense. cb4, ab4 and d5. Black hopes to get something like this, and active play. White doesn't allow this. Bishop e3. a5. If black doesn't want to play a5, he has to count on white pushing a5 and then blocking those pawns. So a5, b5, Knight a7, c4. d4, bishop a3. White is having a pressure in this position. Definitely having a pressure, and play really resembles like some Italian play. Rook e8. Well, here White has various kind of ideas. White is not forced by any kind of means to force matters. But Botvinnik decided to force matters because he simply thought that this is good for him, and he will indeed get some advantage. He pushed c5, knight b5, black has to take this pawn. Bishop f7, king f7, queen b3, king f8, queen b5. Position White was planning to get, and for a good reason, because White does have a safer king. This bishop, I would not say that here a bishop pair of black is something, because this bishop is pretty much dead, while this bishop is quite active. So White should have advantage. Bishop a3, queen b6. White did not want to allow such a kind of thing, for a good reason. So queen b6, bishop takes. Obviously, black is not in a mood to create a white passed pawn on b6 and at the same time open his bishop. So bishop takes, queen b3, bishop takes, and now rook takes, knight c6. And now White plays instructive maneuver. Okay, very logical one, but still nice and instructive. He plays move knight e1, because this knight is going to its nice blockading square. Would we call it Nimzovich knight? We may. This knight is going to nice square. White is having advantage because he has better bishop than this black colleague. White's passer is more annoying than black's passer. Knight will come to d3, and White also has safer king. Knight e1. Queen f6, knight d3, queen e6, and here comes critical moment in the game. Always a question to trade or not to trade. Botvinnik, he allowed here a mistake by trading the queens. He took on e6. White has a safer king, and White had to keep the queens. Queen a4, followed by rook b1, rook b6. Actually, black is facing a really uphill struggle in this position, fighting for a draw. White played a very nice game, but allowed this, well, unusual actually for Botvinnik mistake, because he was normally extremely good with what to trade, what to keep. But here White has these ideas to bring rook to b6. White is much better, pieces are much better organized. Black is really facing an uphill struggle for a draw. White took on e6, and now black is took by rook. Rook a b1, but now black is bringing his king. King e8, rook b6, bishop f6, improving also bishop a bit. f4, kicking the rook out, which normally he is not able to do. Rook b7, trading active rook, rook e7. Rook e7, bishop e7, and this position is about equal, and game very soon finished as a draw. But I like this plan of Botvinnik, the way he played this position, improving it and playing this structure in some sort of way like in Italian game, keeping a long-term pressure. In the other game would be very similar story. Both games are played in 1963. So in the game played a little bit later, at least according to my chessbase information, a little bit later, c3, 97, a3, he went for the same plan, castles, b4. Now his opponent did not play move d6 like Furman did in training game. Well, as we have seen, Furman played d6, but later on he resorted anyhow to taking on b4 and pushing his pawn. But winning opponent Zverevsov, it was Grandmaster tournament in Moscow 1963. He took cb4 and on ab4 pushed d5 immediately. But Winning resorted to same strategy, playing move d3. Like in Italian, keeping a pressure. Queen c7, knight bd2, bishop e6. White is keeping a central pressure. Bishop e2. Okay, White has to start here slowly, being worried about some taking and push. Rook ad8, Queen e2. a6. It is not actually simple here for a White, because Black does not have any immediate threat, but Black is slowly building up his position. And I know from experience playing, let's say, such a position from a Black side, specifically in some sort of Italians, once I push this d5, but White refuses to react, well, Black has to constantly be calculating some stuff like takes and c4. At the same time, any time if Black takes, first of all, White can take by knight. This is always possible. And then it is White has a pressure on e-file, while Black cannot actually somehow take advantage of seemingly space advantage here. And second thing is White can always take back by pawn. These positions are also slightly better for White, because White has this a-file, has some pressure. Bishops may get traded, and then this knight is going to come to c4. I mean, move like bishop c4 may come. Then bishops get traded, the knight come to c4. So Black played here move a6, bishop a4, h6. Black is hoping to keep somehow the position intact. b5, ab5, bishop b5. Black could have actually also started with a move like h6, but then it is not clear after bishop a4 that Black has any better move than move a6, which would then transpose to the same, because Black needs to be worried about this sort of pushing or taking. So a6, bishop a4, h6, b5, takes, queen b6, and c4. Pressure remains. d4, d4. Position is symmetric. There is almost a pawn symmetry, but it is not equal, because Black is not actually making any pressure on White pawn. White does have a pressure on e5. White has here various ideas. Maybe he would also put a rook on b-file. This rook or this rook. And then play move bishop a3. White also has ideas like knight f1, knight e3, knight e5. White has many kind of ideas here. So Black jumped to d4, hoping somehow to create some counterplay. Knight d4, e d4, queen d3. Unfortunately for Black, he cannot create sufficient counterplay. Knight c6, bishop a3 tempi, rook e8. Unfortunately, such a move's blunder exchange, because now we can no longer play move rook e8. Rook e8, f4. As usual, Botvinnik is playing very systematic. He's taking space. Black is not having counterplay. White is here having different kind of ideas. For example, one simple idea is e5 and knight e4. You keep on improving the position. Queen a5, and indeed e5. Knight e4 is very annoying, which you don't solve with the moves like bishop to f5 because I can prepare move like g4. f5, quite radical way to try to solve knight e4 problem. So he's stopping knight from jumping to e4. Bishop is remaining an active piece. Taking on f6 is not clear because bishop f5 and black is getting suddenly counterplay. You cannot play, black is simply now getting counterplay. So Botvinnik, he doesn't want to touch this. He keeps on improving position, using his space advantage. This bishop is reasonable blockading piece on e6 where black is very passive. Queen c3. Not much of a choice because, well, queen is trapped. So queen c3, rook a3. Extremely systematically outplaying his opponent. Queen f3, rook d3. Okay, now ending is lost. Simple chess, grabbing a pawn and having winning ending. Black here went for more desperation than a belief that this can save the game. This exchange sacrifice pawn takes. King f7, hoping to be in time with rook d8, knight b4, something like this, protecting bishop in order to be able to move rook. But okay, white moves first, knight f3, rook c8. Rook d8 would fail for same reason. Knight e5 can happen immediately, or this can happen. And then jump. Rook c8, knight e5, bishop e5, fe5, knight b4, there are no threats, rook d2, knight c6, okay, Botvinnik took on c6, black took bc6 and resigned at the same time because, okay, he will lose a pawn and position is completely lost. This blockade will not hold for very long. So I like those two games because actually I do not see in a modern games too many plans like this. Maybe they are basically played, but I did not find them. And so this is very interesting plan for a white to be combining this play in a Rossolimo with some sort of almost like Italian game type of play. And I like those two games of Botvinnik very much, and well, it is quite easy to, let's say, follow on them to try to, would I say, copy them or something like this. But it is, I think, interesting to follow on this plan of Botvinnik because it looks to me like a very interesting and simply healthy plan for white, giving white some long-term pressure.